So good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our Thursday weekly broadcast. And we have got a fantastic lineup today, which you're going to be enjoying the topic, enjoying the guests. First of all, once again, morning, John, to my co-host. How is life in the US of A?
It's good. It's fine. Nothing much to report on this side other than $2 trillion for infrastructure. Big number. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you get the past the billions into the trillions, it's like a different world.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, what does that mean?
HS2 pales into insignificance, doesn't it?
It does indeed, And so, good morning to Susie and Darren, our two guests for today. I'd like to say a quick hello before we go live.
Hi David. Hi John. Good to see you both. Susie, good to see you as well.
Morning, everybody.
Grand job. So yeah, we'll just kick off officially in about sort of 1 minute's time, just letting people log in and get themselves comfortable. And
They're fighting for seats.
Yeah, for front row seats are always the same price as the back row seats. So get in early and get sitting down. You know, it is frightening, John, just to think how much has changed since our first broadcast just over a year ago now. Yeah, it's been interesting how the world has changed of business and communication, and Zoom has just become was everyday life.
Yeah, it's part of the language now. And we started this as a temporary thing. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, there's a new medical condition, isn't there?
Not so many people have bought.
Yeah, new medical condition, Zoom tiredness, or Zoom, what is it? Zoom blindness.
Yeah, something, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not surprising. I think the other thing I laughed about was to talk about the Zoom space in houses. And that's kind of like just two angles out from the camera, and everything's beautiful and nicely placed behind the camera, and the rest of the room's like a bomb site. But people just see their Zoom space, so people keep their Zoom space tidy. Nothing else really matters as long as they look good on Zoom.
David would know about that, right?
I was going to say, as everybody looks around their room.
Yeah. So okay, we'll give it 30 seconds and we'll go and get on with this. So good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our weekly broadcast. This is a weekly 30-minute broadcast that myself and John Corey of Property Fortress host, designed to give a little bit of a market update of what's happening in the world of property in the UK, and also then to invite on a couple of guests to talk about a specific topic in the world of property. And we also use it to update with some things that are happening in the world of LEOcrowdfunding. So most of you know me already, CEO of LEOcrowdfunding, an equity property crowdfunding platform. And I'll let my co-host John explain who he is and what he does in property.
John Corey, long-term landlord, tech guy originally. So I like the online. And I have these days more focused on with the gray hair. So the angel investing attitude of being the passive investor in other people's deals.
Brilliant. So we don't use the chat box, just so people know, for this broadcast, but we do encourage people to contribute by putting a message into the Q&A facility. So if you have a question, if you have a comment to make on something one of the guests say or John says, then by all means fire that comment in there, and I'll keep an eye on that as we go through this morning. So part of the overarching reason or the aim for these weekly broadcasts is very much about education. It's a facility for people just to keep learning new things about the world of property investment, hearing from guests who have experience in certain aspects of the property market. And so this is very much about learning and then helping people to earn and to own their own property assets, depending on where they are in their property journey. Now, John and I always usually start with just a couple of interesting items that have been in the news this week. The ones that Josh has chosen for us, John, are, first of all, estate agent in Liverpool who's blown away with the crazy property prices. And I'm sure this is replicated in different parts of the UK, but some of the, this guy talked about Ashburn Road, that he bought it in 2005, 140,000, and is now one sold recently at 240,000. So that's come back even to the sort of pre-market crash where property prices were high, and yet, recently the growth just continued. So I know you're always fascinated by the different aspects of locations and what's happening, but I don't know if Liverpool had caught your attention.
It hasn't. I mean, I lived in Chester for a few years and did a little work in Liverpool, but I didn't notice this article. And it's always interesting because, like, what does crazy mean and all the rest of it? And some of these estate agents are quite young when it comes to their experience of the sector. But yeah, people have definitely been putting money into housing, putting money into that home upgrade. The COVID is one of those reset buttons, and people rethink what they want to do, whether it's something they've always been delaying, oh, next year we'll get a nice house or whatever, and now they push that button. I don't know. I have no idea exactly on that specific article, but yeah, prices are up across the UK, up more than people were expecting. That's why I don't like getting into trying to predict the market, because it seems like we're wrong more than we're right. So, like, what's the point other than it's good chatter to fill time, like right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the reasons that the article gave were, of course, mortgage interest rates low, stamp duty, but they also indicated not so much about people wanting bigger houses due to lockdown, but just wanting a change of house, having spent a year in the same four walls. They just want to change, which is something I hadn't thought about, which is interesting. Okay, on the right-hand side, this is probably one that kind of brings a little bit of reality back into the room. Landlords in the UK collected 21% of commercial rents in the quarter, and this really was indicating that actually, to quote, that we are far from back to normal, particularly in the commercial sector, and that the burden of 3 national lockdowns, other social restrictions, the debt pile continues to grow into the billions. And they're basically saying, look, that's probably a more realistic look at where the market will be whenever some of the artificial measures are taken away. So certainly interesting sort of reality that the commercial sector, particularly in city centres and town centres, is going to take a while to recover, John.
Yeah, well, a lot of commercial tenants are struggling as businesses. Whether it's hospitality, trade in particular, but there are other businesses, retail, the shift to online shopping. So this has been a problem. This is slightly a problem in the residential sector where people aren't paying rent in some cases. The right to evict doesn't exist, or it's heavily constrained. So we are in that part of the market shift where the dust hasn't settled. We don't know what it's going to play out as. We have a lot of pent up problems. So it'll be turbulent for the rest of this year, I would expect.
Yeah. So the other article was just about the tenant protection schemes and stuff, but we'll not sort of spend time with that today. But for those who have tenants, there's been a lot of regulation change the last number of years, so it's definitely worth keep an eye on that. I think the interesting thing for me, John, was just they talked about education was needed and that they wanted workshops and things like that. So again, getting back to the big thing of education, people need to know, need to understand, and be aware of what's happening in the areas of legislation.
Yep. Well, particularly in planning, we can cover that a little later, but there's been a lot of changes there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so by way of quick update in the world of LEOcrowdfunding, it's been a very, very exciting, I suppose, week and a half. And first of all, Duke Street, which you'd heard us mention for the last couple of weeks. And in fact, Tina Wenham joined us last week from Target 5. We launched their project at 12 noon last Thursday. And by 8:45 p.m., it had fully funded. So that was in one day, 169,000 raised, 38 different investors. And that was a successfully funded raise. This was a mixed use HMO down in Brighton, quite near the city centre. We're sorting out the shareholder agreement to go out to the 38 investors and move to draw down funds. And the Target 5 team, along with Rachel Hillier, their JV partner, are certainly excited to move forward on this project. Any quick comments on that, John? I know this is a client that you know quite well.
Well, they were a client in the past, so I worked with them quite closely, particularly in the first raise. This raise went a lot more quickly, more or less similar amounts of money, completely different in one level in that this is a 1 year or less project, and it's a very simple buy, refurbish, sell type pitch. The other one was a buy and hold. I'm not sure if the data is conclusive, but it appears that people are happy to get a return on a buy to sell 10-month project rather than hang on for 5 years on a compounded, double-digit return. So is that really a signal in the market? That's one of the great things about crowdfunding. Everybody can see the transactions and you can start to form a view on what does the audience want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much. And then we're right in the middle of our old wooden mill. This is Susie Banks. We'll hear from her just in a minute. We launched this yesterday at 12 noon with a project webinar on Tuesday night, which went very well. And again, fantastic to report that we actually reached our minimum target a few hours after going live. We're up to 82,200 from 35 investors. So again, another successfully funded project on our Leo crowdfunding platform. So a big thanks to all the investors who are liking the projects that we're bringing on and feel they are investable. We'll be hearing from Susie just in a minute, but very excited by this project as well. So let's get on with the guests. As the regular attendees know, it's all about real lives, real people. It's about people who are not just training about property, but who are actually doing property out there. It's their livelihood. They're facing the realities of the market every day. And that's who we like to have on and to discuss various things. So today we are talking about planning uplift, a very topical one, given we've got two projects on the platform, obviously ongoing at the minute. So I'm delighted that both Susie and Darren were able to join us. So Susie, we'll let you go first. You want to give a 30-second of your background, and obviously we'll be talking about your project in a minute. So just really your initial background and what you do.
Morning. I started off with a degree in science and business management, and then trained as a proper builder, bricklayer, joiner, roofer, and moved more into management, development planning, and have done several of these for myself and also for other people. I have a lot of experience planning conditions.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that with some of the things you've done have been quite complicated, and you've managed to successfully navigate a route through that. Also delighted to have on a good friend of mine, Darren Gibson. And Darren, delighted that you're here today, and want to give a quick background as to who you are and what you do.
Sure. Morning, David, and a very good morning to all of the participants on the call. Great to see so many people taking an interest. My name's Darren Gibson. I'm a property lawyer. That's my primary role, and I've also been a property investor and developer for the past 20 years. I have invested and developed everything from one-off single houses to multi-unit city centre residential developments. We have a number of planning uplift projects on the go at the moment. I'm certainly interested to do more going forward. Happy to discuss those with you as the call progresses.
Fantastic. And always love it to see a man suited and booted with a shirt and tie on. I mean, you're old school like me, nice and professional.
There you go.
I've never seen John Corey. I've never seen John Corey wear a tie yet, Darren. Right?
He's one of those West Coast chilled out dudes.
Very good. It's hard to believe we're about 2.5 hours drive from each other, and we haven't actually got seeing each other for I don't know how long now.
Oh,
so the joys of lockdown. But anyway, let's get on with today. So Darren, obviously, just for those who don't know, you obviously did a raise on our platform. It was actually the first raise we did. Back to the end of last year, moving into the start of 2019, moving into 2020. It was 110,700 you raised for a planning uplift project in Coventry. It was a projected return of 45% on the project. Do you want to just, again, sort of 30 seconds, what was this project, and maybe a quick update of where it is now?
Sure, yeah. The site in question is in Coventry, just on the edge of the city. Fantastic site, 30 acres, and zoned residential. There was a previous planning history on this, but there was a number of complications with the site, given its proximity to waterways, canals. There was significant remediation works needed to be completed. There was also biodiverse issues with the site in terms of having to accommodate those off the site if the development was to proceed. So there was a lot of particular issues with the site, but if the planning was obtained, there was a big uplift for all concerned. We hadn't actually completed a crowdfund prior to that. As you know, David, we met you guys. We're really impressed with the way you were set up. We always funded from our own resources, and this project was partially funded from our own resources as well. But we wanted to try the crowdfunding, and we were really surprised at how quickly and how well that actually worked. The dynamic has proved really positive, and the project at the moment is hopefully in the final phases of the planning process. The process certainly was disrupted by COVID and planning officers and consultants and other consultees working from home, not being able to visit the site. But we like to think that we've worked through most of those. So we're down now to kind of two net issues. One is in relation to highways, and the second is in relation to ecology. If we can surmount those, which we expect we will, then we should hopefully have a decision in the next number of months, I would imagine. And we're looking at an outline permission there of over 320 houses, plus about 3,000 square meters of commercial retail.
Okay, brilliant. No, fantastic. Thank you for that. Susie, you're right in the middle of this raise on the platform. Do you want to just quickly give us an overview of what this project is?
Yeah, and going back to the suit and tie, I'm dressed like this because I'm actually off out there to meet the architect in a minute. Very excited. We now have the flood report all done and dusted, so we can work out exactly where we can build and all of that. So that's a very exciting day for us. Which is in essence where we are. We have phase one is already into planning. The raise is all to do with phase two, which is the modern development that goes all around the outside of these beautiful buildings, which need to make them look better rather than just be plunked there. We're going back to what you were saying before, looking at the news of how people want different styles of property, and sustainability has become a lot more important recently. That is what we're aiming to do. A much nicer living environment with more space and room to work, with sustainable build as possible. Active houses are actually slightly further than passive houses, because active houses put more energy back than they actually need themselves, which is what we're trying to achieve. So very excited. No, thank you to everybody who has invested in it so far. It's heartwarming that so many people have shown faith in me like this.
Yeah, brilliant. No, listen, and you've done a really good job. It's been.
Hey, David, could you go back once?
And obviously,
I want it really clear because of the way you introduced this earlier, David. While the platform calls this project a success, it doesn't mean it's closed. This is still open for investing. In fact, it could stay open for another 28 days. I'm not encouraging it to take 28 days, but if anyone is interested in this, go read about it, go check it out. I'm not saying you should invest, but I just want to clear that this is open rather than closed. It's successful in that it's hit its minimum. So the project will go forward. Susie and her team can move forward with the minimum amount of money as it says in the project plan. And we'll get into that slightly later. And then, but it is open if people want to continue to pledge up to the maximum amount, as you can see on the screen.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, absolutely on that. Thanks for John. So
Thanks,
that's
John.
all kind of the ancillary slides. We've put them all at the start. Let's just move on to the important discussion today, planning uplift, key points. I'm going to hand over to John and let him kind of quiz the questions to Susie and Darren.
So just to frame the conversation, so planning uplift, you might hear some people say planning gain. I've been taught by some technical people recently that planning uplift is when you transform on paper a site from what it is to what it could be, and you look for highest and best use. So you uplift or increase the value of the site. Planning gain is the tax you pay to the council in forms of different fees and things. So this is a way of adding value through a paperwork exercise. It's like refurbishing a site on paper. So the opportunity with these two people is they have sites that there's a way to transform the sites and increase the value. Now, I want to start with Darren because he's been doing this for quite some time. How do you normally source your deals?
Yeah, John, look, I mean, there's a number of ways that deals can be sourced. When I started out sourcing these deals, originally, I used to go direct to landowner. So you'd find a site that interested you perhaps in a residential zone. You do a property search to identify who the registered owner of the property was. And then you would make an approach, usually by way of letter, or if you had, other contact details, you could make an approach through telephone. Usually then sites where people are hard to find, a little work on the ground through local agents is a very effective way. Put your name out there as somebody who's specifically looking for planning uplift projects. Agents like to see that you kind of know what you're talking about before they'll introduce you to somebody on that. So, it would be good to kind of have some knowledge of the planning process in that particular locality, so that you build up that rapport with the agent. But the agents are really good sources, and also other builders and contractors in the region also have a really good feel for what's available, who has it, because usually, in my experience, look, the best deals are usually the ones that are not on the market. The ones that are on the market, the value's kind of taken out of it by the time you get there. So really what you're looking for is the stuff that's off market and hasn't had that exposure yet.
Okay, thank you. And just a hint to everybody, if you're trying to get good value when you're selling, put it on the market. And at the same time, if you're trying to find value, you might have to get there early before the agents have educated the sellers. So agencies and builders and things like that are a good source for you these days, Darren. Susie, any particular detail you want to add for sourcing deals from your side?
Yeah, I would add one other. It's really good to get comfortable with a particular area or a number of areas. For example, we focused a lot on Leeds, Sheffield, Manchester, Liverpool for a number of years, and got to know those areas really, really well. So I would be inclined to pick, say, 2 or 3 areas, and get to know the people's areas, get properties that are available, and also do your own searches on the planning portals, because one really rich area for potential deals is in sites that have lapsed planning. So where there previously was a history of planning on the site, and for whatever reason, credit crunch, recession, owner ran out of money, the sites were never really developed. So they're easier to get planning on again if they have a planning history. Okay, thanks. Susie, any other ideas that you have for how you source?
Yeah, there's also a way to look on. You need to work out your strategy before you start. So one way of planning gain, or as you say, planning uplift, sorry, is if you have a house with a very big garden, can you put more in the garden? Can you afford to pay the normal market price for that house and be the person who notices that there's an opportunity in that garden? That for your smaller level developer is potentially easier, and again, they can sell that to a developer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So we got to move a little quicker. So
yep.
I know someone that does that in London, and he likes to do it with HMOs, and he then gets planning. So let's move to risk reward. I know this is a big issue for some people, and in particular, some people who are the passive investors, they want more reward and less risk. So any insights, Susie, on how to manage risk versus reward, like 30-second version?
Yeah, I go with what Darren was saying, that if you've got something that has lapsed planning on it or is within the neighbourhood plan, then you're already starting with a leg up in the area, because it's already been identified as somewhere to become residential. It's very, very hard to say, well, there's a lovely green field, I want to build houses on it. You're going to have to fight. If it's something like a brownfield site in the middle of town, or it's a garden in the middle of town, you stand a lot more chance, which mitigates your risks. And the reward is still very, very good.
So Darren, your site's pretty complex, the one that the crowd invested in, and just so everybody knows, I'm one of those investors. How do you mitigate some of the things? Because you've had to do environmental studies and other things, you have water issues. So how do you manage the risks? Yeah,
well, look, I mean, there's only so much risk you can manage up front, and usually the best way to do that is we would always engage a planning consultant with a good reputation, who's in that particular district or who has a lot of experience in that district, for two reasons. One, they know the plan really, really well. And if anybody hasn't read a town development plan or a regional development plan, they're like hundreds of pages long. So it's not possible for us as developers to read every part of that and be familiar with it. So good planning consultant that knows the plan really, really well. Second reason to go for somebody within that region or who has experience with that local authority is that they are familiar with all of the idiosyncrasies that planning officials have in that district, because what works for one planning official in another district doesn't necessarily work for a planning official in the district that you're working on. I'll give you a real quick example of that. On the Coventry site that we're working on, one of the reports that you have to get is a highways report. And our planning consultant had previously used a particular type of modelling to formulate that highways report. And because a new planning official comes to town and the local authority essentially changed their approach, they don't like the historical model. They've got a new model that they want to use. So the report has to be done again, you know?
Same with flood. Same with flood.
Yeah, exactly.
I know the two of you have had to do seasonal type studies where you have to wait for the right season. And Susie was mentioning that her requirement was for a summer one, but it was almost no cost or low cost to also order up the winter one, just in case they ask for it later in the year. So I want to move on because we're running out of time quickly. Main challenges when it comes to planning. What do you think give me the top challenge you see, Susie, for planning uplift?
Making sure that what I ask for is right for the site. And as Darren was saying, knowing exactly what works locally and what doesn't. The challenge is doing your research.
Okay. Darren, real quick.
Biggest challenge we've had, which has been accentuated over the last year, is getting the local authority officials to work with the consultants and getting the communication going between all of those guys. So it's very, very challenging.
Yeah, communication is dreadful at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the two of you have chosen to use crowdfunding, slightly different reasons, slightly different stages in your project. For those that don't know, Darren's project was already up and running and they were funding it out of their own accounts. Before it came to crowdfunding, Susie's project was a little less along the rails or along the path. It's closer to a start than it is compared to Darren's. So why did you pick crowdfunding? Either one of you start.
I thought it was a fantastic opportunity to involve the community in what I was doing. Part of planning is also the community around it. It's very important that what you're doing is based upon what the need is. When you're doing a big development, it's what the need is locally, because they're the people who can stop you. And I moved on from that and thought there's an awful lot of learning to be gained from doing a site that is not simple. Why not share that?
Okay, very good. Darren?
Yeah, and I mean, from our side, we obviously had been doing planning uplifts before we did crowdfunding, but we wanted to potentially look at an opportunity to scale that particular end of our business. We met you guys over a year ago at this stage, and you know, liked the way your business was set up, if I was honest with you, and felt that you guys could deliver, which ultimately you did. And there's just a really nice dynamic there between the platform and ourselves in terms of the communication and the delivery. So we're just looking forward to delivering now for the investors.
Yeah, as an investor, I am looking forward to that delivery.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be bugging you like, when's your next project? So.
Yeah, well, look, we certainly have a number of others in the pipeline. But we're just keen to see this one across the line before advancing the others.
Okay, cool. David, if we could roll forward.
Yep, absolutely. Just a couple of questions in there. I'll do those quickly now.
Okay.
Someone's asking questions about some other projects that we have on our platform. So there are monthly updates. So if you've invested in one of those projects, they're being prepared currently. You'll get an update sent to you via the system on those. Someone asked about the recording. So if you go to our YouTube channel, LEOcrowdfunding, you'll find us there. You'll be able to watch the recording back. We're currently live on YouTube right now, but you can find this episode and a whole bunch of previous episodes on our YouTube channel. And that's one of the big benefits of what we do. You can go back and learn and see what's coming down the line. So just by way of wrapping up, I think it would be relevant sort of for me wearing the approved person's hat and us being a regulated or operating in a regulated environment as a property crowdfunding platform. The planning uplift projects, you've got to be aware of the risk versus reward. So it is a higher risk. The returns are higher because the risk is higher. As I often say, planning uplift is not where you put your sort of life savings. It's money that you're prepared to speculate on an investment. You know, the capital is at risk. There are no returns guaranteed. So I think it's important to put that caveat in just regarding planning uplift. So that is really us for today, John. As you did mention, and as I had planned as well to do, the old woolen mill is absolutely live for investment still. Susie will be glad that we've like double hit this for today, which is great. So we've hit our minimum. And obviously now we're heading towards the maximum. So you can go on to the homepage, click next step if you want to invest. The minimum investment amount is £100. So you can do it as an education journey to jump on the train, if you like, that's about to leave the station and sort of see this project develop from the inside as a shareholder in the SPV. So that is a good opportunity to do that. And
a point
keep an eye on that.
The risk reward. When you put £100 in, that's the absolute amount you can lose, but you can't lose more than that. You're not signing for a loan. You're not taking on any liabilities or any other commitments. So when you're thinking about your investments and your capital, if you're looking to learn or looking to test something out and you can limit your downside and you have an upside, that can be a good way to manage that risk versus reward.
Mm-hmm. As you sometimes say, John, people can spend a lot of money doing courses and sitting, listening to someone talk about the theory. Whereas for £100, which is probably cheaper than most courses people go on, you actually can be part of the deal. You know, you get to interact, you know, with Susie or Darren. You get the updates. You know, Darren was on there at the end of February with all the investors in his deal, and he come on, made himself available to give a real in-person over Zoom update. So that type of interaction is very, very valuable, and you can learn a lot from being part of the journey, which is great. So, okay, now what we do, as some of you know, we pivot over to Clubhouse. I think, Darren, you're able to join us for a few minutes, and then you've got some other meetings, but our Clubhouse room runs from 11 to 12 sort of officially, but we tend to pivot over in about 5-10 minutes time and just continue the discussion of what we have here, and of course others then join from Clubhouse. So those who are on Clubhouse, then you can join in, ask further questions, a chance to deep dive into the subject. If you don't have an invite currently and you're on Apple, reach out to me. I do have a couple of free invites. We can get those to you. So yeah, happy to see people over there and continue the conversation. Susie, are you on Clubhouse currently?
I'm afraid I'm Samsung. I haven't got Apple. I may have to bow to the other side, mightn't I? And
David did.
Well, for 2.5 years, John tried to get me to Apple, and I was like, not going to the dark side, definitely not. And now I'm on the dark side. Unfortunately, my wife, totally against my wishes, bought me an Apple phone to get me on Clubhouse. So there we are. John's happy.
And he said yes, dear.
Exactly. I know Darren is on Clubhouse, so it's. I mean, Darren, did you get much chance to go on Clubhouse? Do you find it interesting?
Look, I drop on occasionally, jump into some rooms that align with some of the interests, usually real estate investment. There's some good stuff on there from Rob Moore and the guys in Progressive Property, and then you have a couple of other good disruptive entrepreneur, growing and scaling businesses. So there's some really good Clubhouse rooms, and the diverse groups of people in them with the opinions. Fantastic. So you can learn a lot.
That's it. Well, they're going to be enjoying you, me, and John in about 10 minutes time, so they can come on and listen to us having a conversation. So listen, thanks everyone for joining us again. Really valuable today. I thought some really good insights into Planning Uplift. I know, John, you're doing a whole week's course at the minute on Planning Uplift with about 60 or 70 students as part of your property fortress. So it's certainly a topical topic, shall we say? And yeah, it's been good. So thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for joining. Give Susie and Darren and John a chance to say goodbye.
Thanks very much.